It's giving people time and opportunity to join us, and we'll get into it. My goal and objective is always to bring factual, credible intel to you guys to help you ascend of the mind. And because I keep getting nixed for talking about the L, we'll refrain from doing that. But I think everybody's fully aware of what's going on with that. So we'll go back to speaking about law. What is it? How does it affect us? How do we enforce it? Recently, I was told that the law doesn't apply in the courtroom by an alleged judge. All right. So I do my due diligence, because when these people speak, they're not making mistakes necessarily. I have to understand why they're saying what they're saying. Although at the time it's gut-wrenching and it pisses me off, they're telling you something. You just have to open your ears. So let's talk about the law. Let's talk about why hearsay is admissible in their jurisdiction that they're running. Because they're not really in a judiciary, ladies and gentlemen. So the rules of evidence, in as much as they apply, don't apply. And when the rules of evidence, the rule of law, does not apply, well, then you're not in a judiciary. You're not in a judicial proceeding. You're at law in rem. In rem deals with things, person, places, and things. That's in rem. You're not a thing. You're a man. You're not a thing. So people think I'm a little nuts because what I'm doing is, at least my learned friends in law, at law, think I'm crazy. Like, Jesus Pete, Derek, what are you doing? Well, it's quite simple. Why play the game at all when every document you're going to submit is going to get struck from the record? Because they're not interested in allowing you to properly assert yourself. Because after all, the complaint being lodged isn't actually against you. It's against the estate. It's really simple to point that out when you're in the courtroom. I go to the courtrooms all the time. I don't mind being in there at all. There is zero fear. Zero. None. Because there's nothing to fear. Because I was raised to be an honorable man, and I know the difference between right and wrong, and when I screw up, part of being a man, by nature, we're fatally flawed. We always have that conflict of interest between us, the desire of the flesh and the spirit of God within us. And so there's that constant conflict of interest. We have a choice to make. But being an honorable man, knowing the difference between right and wrong, when a complaint is lodged, comprehend and understand that there's not actually a real party in interest. All right? It's a lot like the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, bringing a claim against you. Now, if we all came to court as a jury, and the prosecutor started out by saying, I represent Santa Claus, and Santa Claus alleges that this man over here violated a code, a statute that caused Santa Claus harm, how quickly would the jury be able to identify that there's fraud upon the court. But through indoctrination, men and women believe that the state actually exists. Does anybody on here actually know why a corporation cannot be in constructive possession of a trust? I'd like to help you out with that. Because it doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't have a soul. A corporation cannot be moral in any sense of the word. And because of that, a corporation cannot hold a trust. Doesn't work. It's an inanimate object. It's a fiction. As somebody who believes in the American people, who knows that the American people, furthermore the people of the world, are tired of the innocuous bullcrap, there has never been a better time to go to trial by way of jury. You'll notice that I'm not saying jury trial. Trial by way of jury is different in the aspect that the black-robed cult isn't lording over the situation. Jury trial allows the administrator, pretending to be a judge, to administer the presumed law, and for the participants to make a ruling on the facts. In most instances, the evidence before the court, absent a victim, a moving party of interest, is all hearsay. The prosecutor gets secondhand information from an agent and agency and then decides to move forward with a claim without firsthand perfected superior knowledge. He brings that claim on behalf of the state. Because of the indoctrination that we have received, we believe, or are led to believe, or allow to believe that the state can actually sustain harm, loss, and damage. And it's a fallacy. Unless you go in to the Secretary of State's office and burn the documents that created the state, which is nothing more than a political subdivision at best, or a corporation. That's it. That's all it can be. I was helping a young man with his homework the other day, and it was for government or political science. And it was very intriguing, the questions that they were asking him. What rights would you give up? You must give up 2 rights, and you can keep the rest. One of the questions on there was your right to retain an attorney. Let me be very clear with this. There's never been a right to retain an attorney, ever. It's a right to counsel a learned man at law. Law, ladies and gentlemen, is so simplistic in every nature, there is no excuse for any man not to know it. And this is how simple it is. Live and let live, and leave one another alone. If it's not yours, don't touch it without permission, and honor your contracts. Simple. Law is simple. For all intents and purposes, the United States, its territories and subdivisions, are lawless until you enter a contract. The problem with the contract is that full disclosure was never had. They deceived you by way of omission. Because on the contracts, they should be telling you that you have a right to engage in this activity unimpeded, unobstructed. You have a right, but they never disclose that to you. See, that indoctrination program starts real young. Oh, you got to go get a license. You got to go get your driver's permit. It's really exciting. Oh, I can't wait. I'll be out there. I'm excited, especially for a young man, young ladies too. The freedom of being able to roam around while mitigating the risk of being pulled over by somebody who works for the MCSEO. Now, what is the MCSEO? I got to think about it for just a second. Motor Vehicle Code Enforcement Officer. Motor Vehicle, I don't think I'm saying that quite right, but you get the gist of it. The alleged police officers aren't peace officers. And if you go look at the MESCO, Motor Vehicle Enforcement Safety Officers, that's what they are. Motor Vehicle Enforcement Safety Officers. And what they are doing is taxing you without representation based upon some code violation. Now, code, again, is not law. Code only applies to men and women engaged in commerce. And it's to keep the people in America safe from faulty equipment or people derelict in their duty traveling too fast on our freeways, highways, byways, and passages. It's to keep we, the American people, safe, not U.S. citizens. Okay? Not in as much as a capacity applies, but all men and women, living sentient beings. When you comprehend what I'm telling you, when it finally starts to set in, you will realize that you have been deceived. Now, I don't know about you, but somebody pissing on my back trying to convince me it's raining irritates the ever-living shit out of me. Especially when they have a duty to know. They have a duty, an obligation to know the truth. So any agent and agency on the side of the highway alleging that they're a peace officer or police officer is actually a motor vehicle code enforcement officer. That's what they do. Every state has them, and they're contracted to generate revenue and tax people for the breaches of the code. It's taxation without representation, and everything, ladies and gentlemen, is an excise tax. The other thing they don't teach these motor vehicle enforcement agencies and officers is that when enforcing these, they pick up an obligation. That obligation is a duty to report the transfer tax on the security generated on the side of the road, because they are creating new credits on account into the economy. Most people would lead you to believe it's money. I would opt to say it's credits on account, permissible units, or currency. But just the same, by signing that negotiable instrument on the side of the road and handing it back to them, you just gave them value. You just gave them something that is to be reported to the IRS, and they're not doing it. So you have to report them for that. You have to hold these people accountable, because the full commercial liability for their actions should fall upon their shoulders. Now, when that negotiable instrument, that security, because make no mistake about it, everything in the commercial world is a security or an excise tax. There is no difference. There is no ifs or ands or buts about it. When that security goes from you to that agent, there's one transfer. That transfer of value must be noted. When that agent, an agency, takes that negotiable instrument, that security, and takes it to the prosecuting attorney, there is another transfer of value that is not being accounted for. That's another transfer tax that needs to be recorded. Why? Because if it's not recorded and the IRS doesn't know about it, the American people are getting cheated because we are the investors in the United States corporation. We are the bailors for the bailee, because without us, they got nothing. Then that security goes from the prosecutor to the clerk of the court. The clerk of the court, based upon the information provided, I don't even call it evidence, but based upon that security, generates a case. Now they're looking for a trustee, somebody whose ass will set as an asset in jail, or pony up something that they will never quantify, because it's all presumption and assumption. You believe they want certain instruments, so you give it to them without asking for clarity. And when you give it to them and they accept it, then it settles the matter. But it never discharges it, because you can't pay a debt with a debt. But when that instrument goes from the prosecutor to the clerk, that again is another transferable tax issue. Then that instrument gets put before an administrator. It's transferred yet again, and nobody has paid taxes on the new currency generated in the economy by your signature. You are the source of new currency, your sign of nature. It struck me as odd when Obama said on national television that in order to come out of debt, we're going to have to spend our way out of it. And I was like, what the heck is he talking about? What kind of lunacy is that? What I didn't realize is, at the time, that he was 100% correct. The only way to come up out of debt and to have operating currency is for the American people to continue to sign negotiable instruments, which allows them to underwrite, create bonds, and monetize 10 times, if not 40 times, the value of the instrument. It makes perfect sense to me now. It didn't back then. Let's talk about the courtroom scenario. I took the wind out of their sails the other day. I'm tired of playing games. I'm tired. I'm done. There's no need to do it anymore. I don't have to. Because the fact of the matter is, I'm the only one carrying full liability in the courtroom. I am the only one that stands to lose anything, which presupposes that I have a right to face my accuser. See, because without a man or woman bringing a claim, I'm the only one at risk. Now, does that sound like a conflict of interest? Just think about it. Let it marinate in your mind for a minute. If some little girl came to your house to tattletale on your son or your daughter, alleging that she kicked the Easter Bunny or he kicked the Easter Bunny, would you reprimand your son or daughter? These are the questions, the logical questions that require a logical, logistical answer with lofty Christian morality. You see, I'm not about to tan my daughter's hide because some little girl comes up and says, Piper kicked the Easter Bunny. In fact, it might behoove me to let the little one who's tattletaling know that we don't believe in fairy tales around this joint. See, from the very beginning, after we're born, we're told these little minuscule white lies. Harmless, really. So we thought. But it creates cognitive dissonance within the mind. So telling people that Santa Claus exists, the Tooth Fairy exists, the Easter Bunny's real, gives people, as they're growing up, this situation where they can't quite wrap their head around the state not being real. As they grow older, they realize that the Easter Bunny is not real, that Santa Claus is not real, that the Tooth Fairy is not real, but for some reason, the majority of the populace never grows out of the thought process to identify that the state is not real. It's a corporation. It requires a man with conscience to do something on behalf of its principle. Now, I can't remember exactly where I read this, but it was pretty prolific, and it stuck in my mind. Commerce is simply a way for a man to wear a mask and do unconscionable things to other men and women, all under the guise I was just doing my job. Now, if you have a moral compass, you comprehend the difference between right and wrong. And simply stating you were just doing your job does not cut the mustard. Okay? Real simple. So who is the prosecutor in the courtroom? What is their role? It's quite simple, ladies and gentlemen. Their role is to manufacture crimes, quote unquote, bring forward secondhand information, and press as hard as they can to squeeze blood out of a turnip. The turnip being you. The prosecutor, outside of the commercial realm, is pretending to be the beneficiary of the subject matter on behalf of his principal. You see, they really don't need us in the courtroom to do what they're doing. It's all a facade. It's all a show. Period. They've got the instrument pays the alleged violation, but instead, they want something else out of you. They want you, with all your cognitive dissonance, to go in there and pledge yourself unwittingly as the trustee or surety on the matter, all while denying you your right of subrogation, whisking away the securities, which is the real value, the real interest in the subject matter. So realize this. Absent a moving party being a fiction, a real party of interest, a plaintiff, those are all fictitious terms. The prosecutor, under a fictitious name, is 100% liable for what he is doing, so long as you can identify it. There is no real party in interest. Shame on the prosecutor. What do we have in our arsenal to support my findings? You guessed it. Now, a lot of people believe the lawyering craft only dates back about 800 years. The London Guild. the Bar Association, bala bala. But in fact, it goes further back than that. So far back that it's written in Scripture where it says, "Woe unto you lawyers, for you lay men with burdens grievous to be borne, yet ye yourself not touch them with one finger." It also goes further on to exclaim, "Woe unto you lawyers, for you hinder the men who seek to enter in, yet ye yourself not enter." It's so powerful. I can't go any further in expressing it other than to tell you to get a hold of this book. This book has been a godsend to me. It really has. In my most testing of times, this book has shed light on things that I just couldn't comprehend. I couldn't find the information I was looking for in Black's Law Dictionary. I couldn't find the information I was looking for in Webster's Merriam Dictionary. I couldn't find it in the encyclopedias. I couldn't find it on the internet. I had to open this book to find a lot of the stuff that liberates you, frees you. That's why I speak with such conviction, because I know the truth. I believe it was Jesus speaking to Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate said, "So you believe you're the Son of God?" And Jesus said, "If thou believest so." Never created any controversy. He agreed with thy adversary quickly. There's no dispute. There's no controversy. There's no argument. After all, who am I to tell you what to believe? Being that belief is the most powerful thing in the world. All I'm here to do is plant seeds, make you think. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not going to be overbearing and overzealous like the alleged government is, to force upon you by way of force the teachings and the knowledge that I have gained. I'm not going to do it. It's pointless. You either see it or you don't. Simple. Absent a man or woman claiming harm, loss, or damage, the only thing going on in that courtroom is fraud upon the court by way of deception, theft, and using statutes and codes as a cloak for fraud. Not hard to understand, not hard to see. So, we've addressed some of the issues at hand. What are the remedies? Well, the remedies are simple. They're so simple, it's stupid. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to endure a lot of pain while growing through this process. Because these evil, sinister actors are hell-bent on unjustly enriching themselves, all at your demise and your expense. You'll notice I said theft. People go, theft of what? Theft of your time. The most precious commodity any single man or woman has is time. For tomorrow is never promised. And because of that, today is so valuable, you couldn't put a number on it. It just doesn't have a number, ladies and gentlemen. It's so precious. And yet, you're being extorted of it under a falsified record with second-hand knowledge, being persecuted as though there's a real party of interest. See, they did away with civics in the school because they don't want you to know the things that I've been blessed to have gained for knowledge. They don't want anybody knowing this. The gig is up worldwide, ladies and gentlemen. People all around the world are seeing this. There's no more hiding it. So let's talk about when the administrator steps outside the scope of his presumed and assumed authority, which, to my knowledge, they're never rightfully in, because they're never operating in the judiciary unless you're in chambers, in camera, ex parte, sealed in the exclusive jurisdiction of equity. It's the only mode of operation and procedure that is wholly untouched and has never been changed, even through all the reorganization acts. All right? It's there. How do you invoke it? The best way through my studies that I have seen to invoke the exclusive jurisdiction of equity is to make it an issue of property. What's the property that one could make issue about before the court? Because the semantics of there's no real party in interest over there bringing forward a claim, sworn to and signed under the pains and penalties of perjury, independently bonding the case, is nothing more than an observation. There's no facts on record showing that there's a real party of interest. But that's not a property argument. That's an argument for an acquittal or a dismissal. So how would we turn it in to an issue of property? Did you sign those documents? Are you the only signator on those documents as a man, not an agent and agency? Do those documents, does that signature belong to you? Did you reserve your rights and interest in said document? Or did you just give it away with a blank banker's endorsement? It's interesting to me how in grade school, high school, for what little bit I was there, they never teach you about a qualified endorsement to reserve your rights to the negotiation of the instrument and your rights, titles, and interest therein. I've never been to law school, so I can't tell you whether or not they educate these people on qualified endorsements. I would venture to say they're somewhat learned in them, because if you go to sign a mortgage or a promissory note while restricting your endorsement, they'll say, you got to resign. We can't accept that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's dishonor. On the side of the road, if an agent and agency, an MC, motor vehicle code enforcement officer, safety enforcement officer, tells you that you can't sign that way, he's in breach of the law. He's in violation. He can't tell you how to endorse anything. And by telling you that, he now becomes 100% liable for the instrument. He can't quote a statute, a code, an ordinance that tells you, as a man, that you are forbidden from endorsing an instrument in that way. Oh, I've seen it. I have seen just about everything I'm speaking to you about. In fact, I've seen damn near everything I can imagine, which is why I do what I do for you guys. And thanks to your guys' donations, joining Self-Governance U, donating to Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, keeps me doing this for you guys. There's so much information that I have that I'd like to bestow upon you, but unfortunately, every time I do a heavy-hitting, critical video to build you guys up and get you prepared, I get a 3 or 4 or 7 day ban. So I have to be very cognitive of what I say to you from this point on. Because I do believe in my heart of hearts that I'm actually helping some of you. And if I can just help one man or woman, it was worth every mental anguishing hour of reading through all of these books, through all of this literature. It was worth it for just one. There's nothing to fear but fear itself, ladies and gentlemen. Not a damn thing. Period. When you're younger and you get in your first scrap, you get this anxiety. You get this rush of adrenaline. Many people don't want to be hit. Getting hit hurts. It's the consequence of force meeting resistance. It's not the fall that's scary, ladies and gentlemen. It's the sudden stop at the end that we're all cognitive of that hurts like hell. Some people are innately born with it. Their give-a-shitter's broke. It don't matter how much pain they endure. They know the risk, and they're all about it. And getting hit is just part of the job, and they don't mind. Does it hurt? Sure it does. But it's mind over matter. A lot of the people that pick up what I'm laying down dropped out of school, and most of them have been in physical fights in their life. Mental fights are a little bit different. But let me tell you this. 10% of a physical fight is physical. 90% of it is mental. If you go in knowing that you're not there to lose, that you're there with a noble, honorable purpose, you're going to walk out of that. You might be beat up, but at the end of the day, you ain't going to lose. Because it's about sound principles and doctrines, the reason you're compelled to engage in such an act. I've lost a lot of fights. I've lost fights when my heart wasn't in it, when I was in the wrong, when I wasn't protecting others who couldn't defend themselves. I've lost fights. I've never learned from a fight that I've won. Not once. Never learn from a fight that you win. It's not possible. But you always learn from the fights you lose. You learn how to duck, dodge, weave, bob, and move. You know, in combat, the one who stands still is dead. So in the court, it's the same thing. The one who stands still has a freight train run over him. You lose. But if you can keep your wits about you and not get worked up, you see, for 7 years, these people go to school to learn how to manipulate the situation. They do things called mock trials, mock court situations, where they throw a bunch of hypotheticals out there and they practice day in and day out, trying to explain their juxtaposition and why their opinion should sway the court and be of any relevance. Which brings me to my favorite point. I always like telling them, if I wanted your opinion, I'd peel it from my zipper, and that's a polite way of calling you a you-know-what. Some of you will get that, while others will be lost, inevitably. I'm trying to clean it up a little bit. My mother would greatly appreciate it. So, and in order to honor and respect my mother and my father, I'm doing my best. They're trained to get a reaction out of you because when you're emotional, you'll make a mistake. I know it with firsthand knowledge. When you're emotionally involved in something, you are absolutely prone to make a fatal error, one that lends to the jurisdiction. See, as it stands now, there is no jurisdiction because I haven't submitted any paperwork, although we worked up some beautiful paperwork. A qui tam, Many of you have probably never even heard of a qui tam. It's more of a counterclaim than anything. But the prosecutor who read it goes, well, I believe he's got a motion that he wants to submit before the court. It ain't a motion, you half-wit. What the hell did you learn in law school? It's a qui tam. It's more of an action than a request. But far be it from me to explain the law to somebody allegedly learned in law. After all, I don't practice law, and I don't have a piece of paper that says that I'm authorized to practice law. You have the power and the ability to fire the administrator sitting on the bench and to fire the prosecutor. All you got to do is sound off like you got a pair and fire them. Remove power of attorney, and you can do it orally. Inasmuch as I can be a trustee on this matter before this court, I would merely be co-trustee. Remove it. They're presuming and assuming you to be a trustee. What stops you from coming in as the beneficiary and letting them know who's Big Daddy on campus? Who the boss is? Because it's you. Attorneys are nothing more than brokers negotiating securities. The judge, alleged judge, is administering on behalf of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States, who is negotiating the largest bankruptcy the world has ever seen. All the decisions made in these courts are for and on behalf of the banksters, alleged to be, purported to be, for the Commander-in-Chief who holds all assets. Now check this out. I could have made a real shit show out of this court that I'm in right now. They would have struck it all from the record, but it would have shown that I'm not incompetent, which I could care less about their opinion. The Commander-in-Chief has a primary obligation to settle all debts, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know why? That's the important part. When you make a statement, you better know why. Because all obligations are obligations under Title 18, subsection 8 of the United States. The only remedy for relief for the American people, not U.S. taxpayers, is to discharge or set off two separate actions. The president of the corporation, on behalf of his principal, is the only one who can make payment, because all assets are in his care and custody. Period. So you could subpoena Joe Biden. That bumbling idiot sitting on the stand testifying would be freaking glorious. I would laugh my ass off having an opportunity to question him about his fiduciary obligations. Well, you see, my hair goes blonde and in the summer, and kids like to pull on my butthole hair, and hold on, Nancy, come again, Nancy. Now take his earpiece out. Nancy Pelosi can't be in his ear while he's up there trying to execute his fiduciary obligation. He has a duty to know, and if he's got to ask, come again, Nancy. well, then he's derelict in his duty. It's theft by way of false promise, which is a felony. He has a duty and an obligation to know, period. In the same aspect, or on the same principle, if you are being warehoused, your body is being warehoused as surety while the bonds and securities mature. Deny the beneficial interest of being warehoused and assign it, hell, to the prosecutor, the warden, the sheriff. Real simple. Are you in constructive possession of Derek S. Gonzalez? Do you have in your custody Derek S. Gonzalez, Derek Shaitan Gonzalez? Yes, we do. Good. Pay the bill. If you're the custodian and I'm in your custody and I am hungry and I order lunch, guess who pays the bill? It ain't me. It's you. Are you picking up what I'm laying down, ladies and gentlemen? Out of necessity, being warehoused behind iron bars, completely not having any access to be able to pay the debt in any way, shape, or form, the custodian carries the primary obligation of discharging it. Period. Out of necessity. Necessity trumps law. It's that simple. Pay the debt. Pay the bill. Go find the true bill due and owing and pay it. That's what I'm ordering you to do. I'm assigning that to you. And since I'm here in this cage and all I've got is a pencil, I'll scribe it on a piece of shit paper and you can take it up to the clerk of the court and let him know that I've given you an assignment. Because under Am Jurisprudence 2D 63C, anyone who fills public office is in fact a trustee of me and has a primary and fiduciary obligation to ensure that my assignments are fulfilled. And anybody in breach of that obligation is 100% liable in their personal capacity for failing to know the scope and operation of their duty. Now, what's funny about all this is people go, oh, yeah, where are you going to get enforcement, Derek? They're going to laugh at you. No, they won't. Not once they figure out you have the key of bringing a claim. There won't be any laughing anymore. You take one of these people one time through the ringer, and they'll stop playing with you. You're not worth the gamble. You're not worth the squeeze. And chances are, if you've ascended to this level, you know the difference between right and wrong, and you are a moral man or woman, hell-bent on ensuring that you don't breach the peace nor disturb anybody else. If I actually do something and it causes harm, damage, or loss, I stop. Whoa, I hit that mailbox. I'm going back. Everybody's like, what are you doing? I got to go knock on the door. I got to provide remedy. I can't just abscond from my moral obligation. That's destruction of property. I have to go back there and fix that. And when I fix it, because of the way I was raised, it must be better than it was when I struck it. It's going to be ironclad. I'm going to ask them how they would like me to provide remedy. Maybe they say, don't worry about it. Just give us a couple $100, we'll fix it ourselves. Cool. I accept your contract. And in lieu of accepting your contract, I'm going to go ahead and give you what you asked for. There is no cause of action at that point. I provided remedy. But yet, some prosecutor would come along and go, yeah, you may have provided remedy, but unfortunately, the state is going to take interest in you. And what he's really saying is, I see an opportunity to generate some securities and profit from it handsomely and whisk away those securities and tuck them away in a private fund for our retirement. What do you mean, Derek? Our retirement. You guys should probably go look at the Atlantis accounts. There's a couple of them. There's the Atlantis account. There's the Atlas account. I believe there's another one called the Atlantic account. These are all accounts held offshore for the Bar Association, where they whisk away your securities, underwrite them, generate new credits on account by doing so, and hold the primary in interest for the people, all while telling you can't have it, and generating interest off of it to pay themselves year after year after year for their retirement. Ladies and gentlemen, the largest terrorist organization in the world, believe it or not, does not use guns, does not use knives, does not use bullets. They use pen and paper. And then they contract with the executive branch to have enforcement. What's the job of the executive branch, ladies and gentlemen? To make an observation, create a record, and report it. What position am I speaking of, you might ask? That's the duty of the sheriff. He is supposed to be learned at law. I ain't found a whole lot of them that have a lick of sense. Some of them kind of get the concept of freedom and not infringing on the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. I get it. They kind of get it. But at the same time, for a sad majority of them, they go, well, I'm just doing what the judge tells me. Well, you're part of the problem because you're derelict in your duty, which means you're taking your income under the false pretenses. And people go, well, Derek, you're kind of hard on them. Well, the way I see it, in order to get in the military, you have to take an ASVAB test, right? In order to become a doctor, you have to take a test. In order to become a lying, looting, pandering, plundering piece of crap, you have to take a test. But for some reason, to become a sheriff, you just have to win a popularity contest. Have you ever wondered why in high school they do the prom king and queen contest? And they talk about some of their accomplishments and they glorify it a little bit. It's to indoctrinate you to participate in a system where there is no substantial facts or evidence to support any of the claims, and you cast a vote for the most beautiful looking, the most well-spoken. But in hindsight, looking at that indoctrination and seeing this putrid system we have today that allegedly people voted for, if I was going to allow another man to govern me, the test that he would have to go through in order to earn my trust to be able to do such a feat and a task would be surmountable. You would have to prove, 1, that you're moral, 2, that you know the law, 3, that everything that you're going to be doing is in my best interest. Right? In any election for a sheriff, have you ever seen one of them sit down and answer a series of inquiries about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, these documents are foundational. To not comprehend these documents that I speak of is absolute blasphemy. To even allege that you could serve the people without ever reading those and knowing them through and through, you have done this country a great disservice. Period. Now, my learned friends in law are laughing right now because they go, Derek, you know damn good and well there's no separation of powers, buddy. But that's a nice play on the American people's hearts. You're doing a damn fine job of explaining it to them. Because if we were under a lawful system, that's how it really would be. Unfortunately, during Abe Lincoln's reign, everything fell underneath the executive branch. So there is no separation of powers, ladies and gentlemen, because they're administering a bankruptcy off of our sweat equity. Period. Off of our backs. You see, when I acquired, let's use something else so that we can be kid friendly. When I acquired this product right here, I paid the excise tax on it. And proof of the ownership of this is the title. This little piece of paper right here is the title for this. It's the proof that I paid the excise tax. Now, the excise tax is supposed to come back to me because everything is already prepaid. Nothing in this country, furthermore around the world, is manufactured without first already have been being paid for. It's a deep conversation, a topic I'm not going to go into, but I want you to go do a little research on these little instruments here because they're amazing. If I were to be of the mindset to rob a bank, which my heart bleeds for the idiots that go in there and take debt instrument notes. I mean, to go to prison for stealing debt instruments, just, it pains me to no end. Because if I was to go into a bank, you know what I'd be taking out? I'd be taking out the trash, abandoned property. You see, because what are you going to do? He came in here and he emptied out our trash cans, so he didn't steal anything. Well, no. It was in the trash, right? Yeah, it was in the trash. What's he gonna do with those? Well, you could turn them into the IRS, couldn't you? Back to lawyers, back to the alleged judiciary, which is really all under the executive branch, all right? Let me explain to you how and why everything is under the executive branch. So people don't continue to piss on your back and try and lead you to believe there's a separation of powers, because there's not. Why? Because none of them actually fill the seat of office. How so? None of them take the Article 6 oath, the Title 4 101 oath, the state constitutional oath. They take a Title 5 3331 oath for profit, which means they can sue and be sued. Where would you find that information? Well, when the government, alleged government, operates in commerce, it diminishes its status to that of a mere corporation and can sue and be sued because they're operating for, quote unquote, profit, securities, okay? DHHS, formerly known as Health and Human Resources, now Health and Human Services, because resources was just a little too telling. People were starting to get a brain about them going, wait a minute, I'm a resource. What do you mean? Your life source energy is the battery that feeds this system. It's going to take you guys a while to catch up. But I'll be here all day. And if the good Lord have it, I'll be here tomorrow. But through my teachings, through reading, I've learned that we are not to make promises of any kind. We're supposed to announce that if the good Lord see it so, I'll be there. That way you don't break or breach contract, because we can't guarantee a damn thing. There's too many inevitabilities there to be able to make a statement as such. The administrator, let's get back to Abe Lincoln and what he did. All right. Abe Lincoln, just ahead of the Reorganization Act, issued a memorandum ordering Congress to reconvene. Congress had the authority to reconvene under their own power. This is so important to know. This is something you don't learn in high school because they don't want you to know the truth. Thank God I didn't graduate and get one of them pieces of paper. I might not have picked this up so damn quick, had I. When Congress reconvened under the memorandum instead of their own authority, they then and there became the board of executors to the commander-in-chief of the largest standing military operation in the world. They were no longer government, ladies and gentlemen, of we the people. They are now the board of executors, the board of directors for the executive branch. Under the guise and auspice that they work for the American people, which, if you understand trust law, to a degree it's true. However, if you've entered into a contract and volunteered, you're now part of their system. Under presumption and assumption, even if you haven't, by default, you are known as a U.S. citizen, someone who is incompetent, mentally can't handle their affairs, doesn't comprehend trust law, doesn't understand the value of your signature and securities that you generate. When Congress reconvened under the memorandum, the judiciary did nothing, and by default became the administrators for the executive branch, for the president, which really isn't a president, it's a commander-in-chief position, period. That's what it is. It can be nothing else. So everything they're administering in these courts is on behalf of the President of the United States. Taxation without representation comes to mind. Extortion, racketeering. Are you following me? In 1871, under the Reconstruction Act, there was a new constitution. A constitution being a corporate banking charter, ladies and gentlemen. That banking charter allowed what is known to be a constitutor, which the very definition of constitutor is to move debt from one entity to another, essentially rolling it over. Because the mathematical equation for the nations around the world when it pertains to debt is 70 years. Every 70 years, the debt doubles. And it becomes an impossibility to pay it. Now, important question. Who does the debt belong to? In the aspect of who is supposed to receive the credits on account? Who is the creditor, ladies and gentlemen? If you know the answer, the whole facade that they're operating under falls apart. Because that national debt, ladies and gentlemen, belongs to we the people. Period. Richard Branson once said it best, and I had to think about what he was saying. He got on national television, international television, and he said, I just want to know who we owe. Where are all these taxes going? Who are we paying? What is the man's name? What a brilliant question to be posed or proposed on national television. And it went over everybody's head. Don't you know, Joe, you got to eat, shit, sleep, shave, pay your taxes, and die. Don't you know? Everybody knows that. It's custom. Let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, just because something is custom does not make it a law. Just because every idiot walks off a cliff doesn't mean that it's the law, that it's correct, and that it's beneficial for anybody. Period. The amount of funds, credits on account, permissible units that I see squandered day in and day out, aiding and abetting the enemy of this nation, is so egregious that every man, woman, and child should be down at the local mayor and the local sheriff's office going, we ain't putting up with this no more. Watson, we got problem. And you're either going to straighten this problem out, or we're going to march every last one of you asshats right up out of our county. Because remember, the counties were created long before the states were. That's where your sheriff comes from, to govern the county. Counties were created before states. We're coming to that pivotal moment in time where people are ascending. They're waking up. This is a marvelous time to be alive. We shouldn't be down in a stupor about all the semantics going on. But we should, however, be cognitive of all the shit being pushed down our throat, the narrative. In this good book, it tells you not to defile your temple. It tells you not to engage in incest. It tells you not to fornicate with monkeys, baboons, orangutans, giraffes. I mentioned the primates first because, well, their anatomy is strikingly similar, right? But for the people that herd sheep, stay away from them. You're not supposed to be fornicating with them either. You're supposed to stay with like kind to procreate. If I cannot get an order from a public official to register a motorcycle, which is what my whole court case is about, I think it's absolutely funny. Because they're screwed. I've got them 90 ways from Sunday. There's no getting out of it. I've offered remedy a dozen ways, including half a pound of silver or better, with a couple gold coins. Now, doesn't your law also say the same as my father's? My father's law says an offering of tendering of payment made and refused is payment made in full. Doesn't your law in the commercial realm also say the same? That would presuppose that you had jurisdiction in the first instance. But my father tells me, agree with thine adversary quickly and provide remedy to remove all controversy. There's no controversy because there are no facts in dispute. Why? Because everything that's been manifested onto their record, which is private until sentencing, and even after sentencing, it's still private, it's never really publicly released. See, if it was public, then they wouldn't be able to just seal it and whisk it away. Everybody would have a right to see these cases that people are winning. So many people go, Derek, can you show me the cases where you've prevailed? I can. And it's not that I prevailed. You know, as Mr. Anonymous says, quit saying that, you moron. You look stupid. What do you mean, Mr. Anonymous? Why would I look ignorant for stating these things? Because you didn't win shit. The American people won. Start saying it correctly. When you make it about yourself, you lose. It's not about you. It's about sound doctrines, principles, and values that you bring to this nation under the concept that a trespass against my rights is a trespass against yours, and you won't stand for it. My rights stop where yours begin. Facts. Interesting question to propose to the prosecutor as well as the alleged administrator. Can you point to the person that carries the obligation? Can you point to the person who these charges apply to? I'll wait. I got nothing but time. Because, after all, this is nothing more than sound doctrine and principle. Surely you can point to the person who's liable, who the charges apply to. If you know anything about law, we're talking about at law in rem. At law in rem deals with persons, places, and things. Now, the Fourth Amendment is really nifty, quite crafty the way they worded it. I actually enjoy it. You have a right to be secure, not granted to you by the Fourth Amendment, but granted to you by the Heavenly Father, whose very essence is within you. You have a right to be secure in your person, houses, papers, and effects. The young man that was doing his government test and quiz the other night and was speaking with me, and I considered it an honor and a privilege that they would even consider speaking to me about this man's homework. He said, what rights would you give up? You can only give up 2, and you can keep the rest. What would they be? Why, in God's green tarnation, are we asking kids to give up rights? First of all, you can't buy them. You can't sell them. You can't trade them. Do you know the answer why? Because you are not the grantor. You do not have that authority. Period. You could waive them, I guess, but that would be facetiously ignorant. So I'll tell you what, I'll waive the enumerated ones while retaining the unenumerated. And the best way I could explain it to the young man is like this. The enumerated were put in place because of what the founding fathers were going through at the time. And they worried that at some point throughout history, being that it repeats itself, as the people would forget about the most quintessential rights that they have to stop oppression. So they wrote those ones out. Those were clear-cut line in the sand. Anybody who wishes to be tyrannical, know this. These people have a right to overthrow you. They have a right to euthanize you. They have a right to assemble. They have a right to come to your house and drag you out and cinch you to a saddle horn and lynch you. These people are the boss. Because your position was created in trust to keep the peace, the posterity, the tranquility, the welfare of these people above your own agenda. That's how much power and thought was put into those documents. And then it goes further on to exclaim that for the ones that are not written, the people will have the choice. Can any of you think of any unwritten rights that you have? I'm going to give some of them to you, but I could go on literally for days. I mean, I love it when I'm sitting in a court and they go, we're going to read your rights. I need a lemonade, and a bathroom break at some point. We need to schedule some of that, because for you to say that you're going to read me my rights, we going to be here for a while. Somebody bring me a Fanta? Thank you. Glass of ice? Yeah. Maybe a fan? A little uncomfortable in here. This kitchen going to get real hot. Real hot. How dare you try and tell me what you believe my rights are. So let me give you some unenumerated ones. Most people don't realize that these are rights. You have the right to involuntary muscle spasms. Oh, Jesus, Derek, where are you going with this? Do you realize that breathing is an involuntary muscle spasm? You don't think about inhale, exhale, exhale. It's an unconscious action taken in order to survive by your body, by your brain, telling your muscles to expand, contract, expand, contract. It's an unenumerated right. It's so basic, it need not be written, right? So they come into a jail and they try to waterboard you or suffocate you. They're trespassing against your right to breathe. If they're putting or forcing you to wear something that obstructs your breathing, ladies and gentlemen, your unalienable, unenumerated rights are being violated. Let's talk about another one. Your right to urinate, defecate, masticate, masturbate. Go look up masticate. You'll understand why I use it, because it rhymes with masturbate, and it always catches people off guard. Oh my God, honey, he's talking about, fiddle-faddling around. It's to catch your attention. Make sure you're not sleeping over there. What'd he say? Masturbate. It always grabs their attention. Could you imagine them writing that in the Constitution? You have a right to pleasure yourself. It was so basic, it need not be mentioned. People believe that all their rights are written down. And this young man is going through a government educational program supposedly to teach him about his rights, while asking him to waive his rights and never explaining to him the power of the unenumerated rights rests within the people themselves. Under the concept of unenumerated rights, you have to be cognitive of other people. How so? Because if I'm exercising one of my unenumerated rights that I have, and it's disturbing the peace of somebody else, then I don't have that right at that location. For example, discharging a tactical defense tool in town may cause somebody to be disturbed. So naturally, I go out to the country where if they're out there, it's their own problem. Right? So I have an unalienable right to go do those things. It's not written anywhere. But the law is simple. Love yourself and your neighbor equally, and do no harm. So if you're doing something and you notice that your neighbor's a little disgruntled about it, make the conscious decision not to trespass against them by disturbing them, because they have a right to live peacefully, just like you do. And although it may be an inconvenience for you, if you want to continue with that activity, do the right thing and move yourself to another location where you're not causing anybody any distress or any stress. Simple. So simple. The authority resides in the people. Yes. So let's talk about another subject matter here. I'm guilty of this myself. I use I a lot. I. In legal land, when using I stands for individual. An individual is absolutely governed by commerce. See, in the Constitution and the preamble, it doesn't say I, it says we, us, and our. We're part of the molehill, ladies and gentlemen. The more you attempt to separate yourself from the molehill, the more you get squashed, stamped out. Oh, there's another ant that wants to identify as a red or blue ant. Bam, got his ass. You can't walk away from the hive, ladies and gentlemen. The hive is your protection. Individual is a bad thing. You want to be part of we, us, and our. Why? Earlier, I did a sermon about the conflict of interest. We've got the mud of the earth on the outside of us, Satan's mud, Lucifer's mud, and on the inside of us, the breath of God. So we have this perpetual conflict of interest. We have the lust of the flesh while battling with spirituality, consciousness, breathed in through our nostrils, the gift of life from our Heavenly Father. We're supposed to worship the Heavenly Father to show Lucifer that even his mud of the earth worships the Father better than Lucifer does. We were put on this earth to show that God himself, Yahweh, was just and righteous and removing Lucifer from heaven and casting him down to earth with 1/3 of the angels. It's amazing. I think it's about time we do our part, don't you? I think it's about time that we send Satan's little minions and helpers on their way. Propose solutions. How might we embark upon a massive correction? First, we have to acknowledge and accept and comprehend that there are things greater than us. That's the Creator. He put me here for a reason. I don't know if I've necessarily found my calling yet, but damn, it feels good. let me tell you, it feels good following his good works and being of service to him. It's a real calling. It's a real purpose. I must be about my Father's works. So helping people ascend to the mind to realize where their authority comes from is number one. I'm not necessarily the best in explaining how to worship, but I believe the first step is just to acknowledge and accept what is. The only thing that can be. Because all men were created equal. Nobody created themselves. The process of creation has always been heat, pressure, and this theory called time. And with any luck, a whole lot of love. When you realize those facts, then you can come up out of your cognitive dissonance. When you realize that the founding fathers did away with titles of nobility for a reason. Titles of nobility are dangerous. Titles in general are dangerous. If the Father wanted us to have titles, he would have given them to us. We're not supposed to be worshiping false idols. But we do it every day, not realizing what we're doing. Somebody says, you got a driver's license? Oh yeah, I got one of those. Look at this. Look at this engraven image on this piece of plastic that I believe is mine. It's me, it's mine. It's not you, and it's not yours. You really need to wake up and comprehend that. That piece of plastic belongs to the estate, period. And anybody that wants to argue that, just go talk to a block wall, because I don't have time. I don't have time to argue a fact. See, the truth is, you might not like the fact, but no matter how much you dislike a fact still remains a fact. Eventually, you either accept it or you walk away ignorant and continue to believe something, which belief will be your downfall in that aspect. The birth certificate is merely evidence that the estate exists and that you're the holder of it because you're the only one that can acquire it after the age of 18. That certificate is a bailment certificate. You are the bailor, period. The bailer of what, you might ask? Your life source energy has been pledged to a corporation. Because, after all, it is the only way to fund a government. They need you. You don't necessarily need them. They need you. They need you to be willfully ignorant, absolutely batshit crazy, so they can continue to fund terrorist organizations, participate in mass genocide, fund the railroad to Auschwitz, to the concentration camps. They need you. You guys, are you aware that Henry Ford was building automobiles and tanks for the Nazis, for their cause? And when the U.S. military bombed his operation, he sued the United States and he won. Talk about aiding and embedding the enemy. Wow. Really? And he sued him? And he prevailed? Time to put these people back in check, ladies and gentlemen. And don't take my word for what I'm telling you. Don't do it. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm just here to plant seeds. I hope to help you ascend of the mind. That's it. I'm not here to press upon my views. I'm not here to proclaim to know everything there is to know. It's not my job. It's not my job. It's not my calling. My calling is to hopefully get you to come back home. You see, everybody says the system's so unfair, Derek. What do we do, Derek? Well, the system is unfair, and it's designed that way by the Heavenly Father himself. Well, how can you affirm that? How do you know that to be true, Derek? Because while I was 16 days in solitary confinement, which is cruel and unusual punishment, the good Lord stripped me of every legal document I had. It took me 2 days to realize why I was there. He knew I wasn't going to read his book. He wasn't going to have it. He had the rods of God put me in a place when I was ready to read his book. And because he knows how absolutely stubborn I am, he made sure that somebody violated due process of law. But he didn't tell me anything else after that. He waited until I finally became cognizant enough to realize that sitting alone in here lost inside my head is doing me nothing. Eureka. There is one book that over 12 people have been sent to me by the grace of the Heavenly Father to read. And I tell them every time, I'm going to read it. I promise. I'll get to it. Just not yet. Not today. Probably not tomorrow. But I will get to it. Derek, have you read that book yet? It's sitting on my desk, man. I'll get to it. I promise I'll get to it. But right now what I'm reading is about securities and the banking. And you guys got to look at this stuff. Heavenly Father finally got tired of me denying him. Right to solitary confinement. And I asked for that book 2 days in, knowing that they couldn't deny it to me. It's so interesting with firsthand experience and knowledge. When you go to a school in the public school system, this is the last thing they want you to have. The power within this book is amazing. And we're supposed to wield it with respect. All right, we're not supposed to pull it out like Excalibur and start lopping off ears and heads, because we're supposed to forgive the ones that trespass against us so we ourselves can be forgiven. It's equity. We're not the judge, jury, and executioner. We really are not. That's for the Father to decide. But we're supposed to lead by example, and this book shows you that. While I was in there, I read about the rods of God, and I started to understand the system a little more. It started to make a little more sense to me. You see, because in 1 Timothy section 9, it says, the law was not written for a righteous man. So I had to do some soul searching. Derek, are you a righteous man? Do you do the best you can to do right by others, and most importantly, represent your family and the Heavenly Father to the best of your ability? I struggled with that one, because when I was younger, there were some things I did that I wasn't proud of. In fact, I wore a lot of humility on my shoulders and hung my head with great shame for some of the antics and bullshit that I pulled as an offspring, young adolescent, however you want to look at it. We've all been there, you know. Which brings up another good point. Let he who is not sinned cast the first stone. None of us, absolutely none of us, are free from that. Not a one. So who are we to pass judgment when our own house isn't clean? See, none of us have that ability. In the court, the rods of God exist to bring you back home. They're tormenting you like demons. They're torturing you. They're running you through the mill. They're unjustly enriching themselves. They're whisking away securities. And they're doing the works of the devil. Make no mistake about it. They are patronizing you, torturing you, mentally tormenting you. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is by design of the Heavenly Father. Nothing exists down here that he doesn't ordain or condone. And the reason is to lead you back home, to lead you back to him. That's what it took for me. You don't find God, he finds you. Make no mistake about it. You look all your life looking for God. He finds you. I promise you. He will find you. You sit there and meditate and think and think and think and literally dwell within yourself, not the state. Ladies and gentlemen, people go, well, what state are you in? I'm in a wonderful state of mind. Why, you know what I'm talking about. No, I really don't. I'm in a fantastic state of mind. It's euphoric in a sense. Although sometimes tormented by the ignorance of others, I can't allow that to rain on my parade. In the court, when they allege that it's CR, which stands for criminal, but don't take my word for it, because we're presuming and assuming, correct? Because we don't really know what CR stands for. CR is an abbreviation, and it may mean something entirely different in their mock trials. So we ask, is this affair before this court criminal in nature? It's a yes or a no answer. Real simple. More than likely, they'll say yes. It's criminal. Great. Will the real man in interest bringing forward a claim sworn to under the pains and penalties of perjury, facing 1 year in jail and a $10,000 fine, independently bonding this action, please come forward now so I can provide remedy? Because the nature and the cause of a criminal allegation requires a man claiming harm, loss, and damage. He must affirm the action that was taken and how it caused him harm, loss, and damage. Whether it was your willful ignorance or you actually had intent, there must be, in a criminal matter, a man who claims some type of loss, trespass, harm, or damage. Absent that, the presumed court has zero jurisdiction. Zero. Why? Because a corporation cannot exhibit empathy. It does not have feelings. It cannot operate in good faith. It does not have a soul. It does not have a conscience. So, when they allege that it's criminal, you need to comprehend this. They're bringing fraud upon the court because the truth of the nature and cause is that it's civil. They're alleging that it's criminal, but the true nature and cause of the complaint being lodged is based upon a contract, breach of contract, that they will never, ever, ever bring before the court. Ever. Not happening. Want to know why? Can I get your innocent explanation as to why you omitted on this form my rights to engage in this activity unimpeded? Why did you omit that from this form? Could it be that's how you got jurisdiction? Is that deceit I smell? Yeah, smells like deceit, which is equated to a lie, a fabrication of the truth. How is it on a registration form for your automobile, they don't tell you my father's law? My father says that if you put sweat equity into it, it's your mule. And if you lend your mule out and something happens to that mule, then the man that borrowed your mule owes you 7 mules. That's what my father says. Now, when we look at the commercial aspect of it, it says the same thing. So are not your laws, your statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations in harmony with my father's law? Am I not owing 7 times the value you allege that I owe? You brought a criminal case that's civil, using a statute or a code as a cloak for fraud, which is prohibited, all under the guise that I entered into a contract knowingly, willingly, intentionally, that granted you jurisdiction to engage in a right that otherwise I had, all while omitting it from the documentation, stating that I had a fiduciary obligation to your principal to register my private household consumer goods primarily used for non-commercial activity that is tax exempt. And you omitted that from that document. And because you omitted that from that document, we have an issue. Full disclosure was not had. So can I get your innocent explanation as to why that's omitted from this document? Why you're leading people to believe by false misrepresentation that they have an obligation to do so? All while absconding from telling them the truth about that's how you get jurisdiction in a civil matter, is because the United States is lawless for all intensive purposes, which means contract creates the law and equity follows it. A law wasn't written for a righteous man. 1 Timothy section 9, it tells you who the written law was that was created by man. Caesar's law, Roman civil law, was created for. It was created for the heathens. Who are the heathens? The heathens are the ones without God, without morals, without a moral compass. They do what they want, when they want, as they please, wreaking mayhem and causing havoc on their fellow brothers and sisters, all while being egregiously selfish. That's who the law of the Pharisee was written for. Don't believe me? Go to 1 Timothy section 9. There are only two competing realms, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. You have Roman civil law with the Judicature Act of 1871 combining equity and at law, blending the jurisdictions. That is not the equity that I speak of. The blending of the equity and at law society, or jurisdictions rather, which is the law of the words, was blended for the purpose of helping them fleece good, hardworking American people. Period. They use it for their benefit. When they tell you they are balancing the equities, it is not in your favor at law in rem when dealing with things. Period. So, in the exclusive jurisdiction, well, let's talk about the equity on the at-law side. I'm going to give you this maxim, and maybe it will help cement this in your mind. Let he who wishes to remain ignorant be ignorant. That's a Roman civil maxim. Because our good conscience requires that when we see can't get right running around our neighborhood, kind of have a moral obligation for the sake of society to help him ascend to the mind. Otherwise, we're all screwed. We're doomed. We are only as strong as our weakest link, period. It's a law of nature. And to prove that point, what do wolves pick off when they're hunting? The weakest link. Don't be a weak link. Furthermore, don't allow your fellow man in your communities to be weak. Build them up, bolster them, provide them the knowledge, the love, and the care and the attention that they need in order to stand up. That's a Roman civil maxim. That he who wishes to be ignorant, remain ignorant. Basically saying if you don't know your rights, you don't have any, and we're not going to help you. It's a complete contradiction from what the intent of the founding fathers was to put learned men in place to help the people. Instead, they've perverted it 180 degrees, and they feed on the meek. What's the other competing realm? The exclusive jurisdiction of equity. You have concurrent, auxiliary, and exclusive. Concurrent, auxiliary, and exclusive. Exclusive is where a man makes a claim and enforces it. That's where man finds remedy. Because the things at law in rem belong to the man as beneficiary and heir. See, at law in rem, he's only a co-trustee by proxy, at best by proxy. But again, they're presuming and assuming you to be the co-trustee. Why not come in there and set the record, correct it? I'm here as beneficiary. I'm here as executor. I'm here as grantor. Why not? I can be whatever I want. Whatever I want to be. Well, I'm going to be anything but what you're presuming me to be. If we're going to go into trust law, when you start to study it, you will understand why it's we, us, and our. Heavenly Father, the Holy Spirit, our mentis, our mind, is all within us. We, us, and our. Doing the good works of my Heavenly Father, which I am called to do. We, us, and our. Now, as I was evaluating trial by jury, I found it interesting. There are 12 jury members. Just so happened there were 12 disciples. There's 12 jury members, and there's somebody being persecuted. Number 13 was Jesus, who was being persecuted. these sick bastards reenact over and over and over again the persecution of Jesus Christ. Let that resonate in your mind. See, somebody's got court in an hour. Simple questions will do the trick. Can you point to the person who the charges apply to? Can you identify the plaintiff and what the plaintiff is wearing today? For and on the official record? Can the man or woman bringing the claim come forward so I can provide remedy and remain in honor today? So simple, so eloquent. It's not an argument. For there are no facts in dispute. I waive all benefits without God, and I bring the land. Is there a man or woman today coming forward with firsthand perfected knowledge, making a claim that I do them a harm by way of trespass, for which remedy and relief can be granted? I, as an honorable man, will say it again. I am here because I believe there's a man or woman making a claim against I, and I would sure like to remain in honor and pay anything, or provide, I wouldn't say pay anything, provide remedy to that man or woman bringing forward a claim. If no man or woman come forward pressing a claim against I, for which relief can be granted, I require this case be dismissed. Period. Done. Simple. Sit down. Don't say another damn word. You have just removed the presumption of 11th Amendment qualified immunity from anybody sitting on that bench. The actions that they take after that, they are 100% personally liable for, as they operate outside their scope, because equity sees an intention to fulfill an obligation. Their intent was to take the true oath of office. When they abscond from their duties and obligations, they are now operating personally and are personally liable in their own personal capacity. 11th Amendment immunity only applies when they're doing the works of the Heavenly Father, upholding his house of justice by exhibiting the Father's grace. A lot of people have a misconception of what Jesus was doing at his Father's house and what his Father's house is. His Father's house is a place where justice is served. They have taken these synagogues, they have perverted them 180 degrees, and they are benefiting from the misery they create. You have to know who you are. I am not a U.S. citizen. I am not at war. I am not an enemy belligerent combatant of the United States. I am a friend of the United States. I am a co-beneficiary and heir of the public trust, as well as the United States. And I relinquish this certificate, in as much interest as I have in it, to offset and discharge this matter. Let it be stated for and on the official record that I surrender this birth certificate to offset and discharge any obligation the estate may have. Simply asking questions, putting them on notice, and letting them know that you require it to be discharged now makes the administrator liable for breach of trust, breach of the oath of office, breach of his fiduciary duty, warring against the Constitution, which is considered mixed war. Go look it up. It's a treasonous act, engaging in mixed war. All right? For those of you that are gaining a plethora of knowledge from this and feel like supporting the cause, I do have a Cash App, I have a Venmo, I have Zelle. I'll be doing a class really soon about taxes. Taxes are fun. None of you should fear the IRS. In fact, the IRS are a gift from the Heavenly Father himself. The agents that work for the Internal Revenue Service are a blessing to us. You just have to understand the nature of the beast. And once you do, you will find that the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, is your friend. And they love hearing from learned men and women who know who they are, who know what role they play. They delight in equality just like equity. They love it. They're fully aware of all the identity theft going on. Absolutely equivocally aware of the identity theft. They're just waiting on you to give them an order, to give them an assignment. That word is so important. Assignment. You remember in grade school? You got an assignment this week, kids. Don't forget to get it done. Get your assignments turned in. Isn't it funny how they ingrain these words into you? And yet as you get older, you stop using them? Assignment is a very powerful thing. Brings me to my next good point. Power of Appointment Act of 1951. Oh, yeah, baby. Whew, I love it. Yeah, styling and low profiling. If you understand the Power of Appointment Act of 1951, it's Yahtzee. Oh, yeah. We're going to the casino if you understand that. Cha-chang, cha-chang, cha-chang. Compounded with Am Jurisprudence 63C2D. The Power of Appointment Act of 1951 is one bad mamma jamma. See, that's where it's nice to understand trust and trust law and the positions that are available to you, because you can walk in as the executor. You can walk in as the grantor. You can set down some law that they can't subvert from. Who's the trustee responsible for bringing forward these securities so this matter can be settled today? It's the only reason I'm here. Bring it forward. Let's get it done. And if you stifle this process, I need your innocent explanation as to why you are prohibiting and consequently cheating the United States and the United States Treasury. What's your innocent explanation for this abortion and abomination of justice? I'll wait. I got all day. These people like to steamroll people. They're trained to do it. Get you frustrated. As though the words that you speak have no merit, no force, no effect. I'm here to tell you right now. Stick to your guns and repeat it over and over and over again. Innocent explanation. Mr. Anonymous told me a story about an administrator who was being removed by the bench by the Bar Association because he used scripture in his ruling. There's supposed to be a separation between church and state. And he said, I just need your innocent explanation as to how we're a lofty Christian moral country, and yet scripture has no place in this room. Just give me your lawful, innocent explanation. They couldn't do it. They couldn't remove him from the bench. They could not prove that what he was doing was reckless, careless, and wrong. So he remained on the bench. That's where I got the innocent explanation thing, was from Mr. Anonymous, and I really like it. What's your innocent explanation? Kind of rubbing their nose in the turd that they left on the floor. That's pretty much what it's doing, while being graceful and eloquent about it. I know sense explanation. I think that's going to wrap it up. I've been out here for a while and it's getting a little warm out here. But I hope you find value in this. I hope you share it with your friends and family in these troubling times. Know that we are the answer and that all things are possible through the Heavenly Father. All right? It's very important to know that. That we are to be about our Father's work. That we are the correction, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to stand in the light with truth, honor, dignity, and respect for one another. Even these agents and agency must be forgiven. Because if we don't forgive them, how can we expect to be forgiven? They have turned us against each other. They didn't need a foreign invader to come into this land and take us over. They did it by providing an occupation known as the lawyering craft, who is foreign to this country. The American Bar Association has been deemed and determined by a private investigation held by the Senate. A private committee was put together to investigate the American Bar Association, and their conclusive finding was that the American Bar Association is a communist party hell-bent on destroying the American way of life. Our values, our customs, our morals, all thrown to the wayside. Makes a lot of sense when you start to realize that the legislator dictates what the school system teaches. The legislating body is all lawyers, ladies and gentlemen, that is moving us to communism, socialism, Marxism, which will eventually lead to a dictatorship. We're there. The good news is, with intelligent, informed Americans, furthermore, people of the world, we can end this tyranny. We can end this despotism, this despotic executive branch lording over the people. We have the power to do it, and it's time. So, if you support this message, you agree with this message, if it was clean enough for you today, share it with your loved ones, your friends, your family. If you care to donate to the cause, I will put the Cash App down below, I will put Venmo down below, and I will put Zelle down below. In the near future, there will be some classes. It's the status quo is always the same. It's a donation of 100. So, with that said, thanks for joining me. Thank you for making this possible. All the glory goes to God. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And before you do anything, go do your own research, especially when it comes to the... You don't want to do your research on that. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day.